Hello, Move Nation. This is Jonathan coming to you from Move Remote HQ. And today we've got something a little bit different for you. We have flipped the script, and I am behind the mic, so to speak, and Babz Jewell is the interviewer. So she interviewed me. She is a Move member. She is a professional interviewer. She works for Verizon as a lead user researcher. So she's used to talking to people from all walks of life about all sorts of things. And now she can add gym owner to that list. So she's been an important part of this podcast all along the way. She's helped me in designing these interviews and designing these questions. And I really appreciate her support. And I appreciate that she took the time to work with me and do this interview. So we discussed my history in athletics and health and fitness and the start of the gym. Also, all of that normal stuff like the priorities and goal setting and things like that I always ask of everyone else. But then we get into a little bit about how we deal with switching from coaching in person to coaching online, and maybe how the mental aspects of coaching and training are more important now than they've ever been due to the current situation. But this was just a great conversation. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you do too. So give it a listen.
Yeah, so let's start at the beginning, I guess. I think for you, so the beginning of your story with CrossFit. So you've been in CrossFit for a very long time. How many years?
Since around 2007.
Okay, so that is, would you say like that would be the beginning of the CrossFit phase?
It was
awareness.
Right. Yeah. So it was even kind of low level at that time. Mm-hmm. I don't think it really hit, the masses or whatever, maybe until 2012 or sometime around then. It had even been around since before then. I mean, they started back in 2001 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then maybe the first affiliates were 2005. So we were still a few years behind that as well. Mm-hmm. We affiliated in 2008 as CrossFit East Decatur.
Wow. So that is, first of all, that is a long time. So congratulations on your tenure with CrossFit. You told me the other day that CrossFit actually just started off as like a movement theory, a movement style, like out of California. Is that right?
I guess I don't know the exact history as far as Greg Glassman would tell it, but he was training people in a garage in Santa Cruz, and they were doing this type of training, high intensity training, constantly varied functional movements. And it turned into a website where he would post the workouts that these people were doing. And then people from around the world and around the country first and around the world started to see these workouts and try them themselves. And it kind of turned into just a movement from that small gym in California into this kind of worldwide phenomenon in a short period of time, I guess. So
I'm kind of like laughing internally a little bit right now because there's so many origin stories that start out in a basement. It's like dudes in a garage or dudes in a basement, right?
Right.
That sort of thing. So how did CFED...
In California.
Yeah, exactly. We've heard this before. Steve Jobs,
right.
Bill Gates, et cetera. So what is the origin story of CFED? Where did that business come from, but then also where did your involvement come from? So maybe where you started exercising, but then how that led into business.
Sure. So I'll preface this by saying that I was never really into exercise. Mm-hmm. So as a child, I was an athlete. I would play soccer mostly, but I played other sports as well, baseball and basketball a little bit and tennis. I was also into skateboarding. But when I went to college, I didn't really exercise all that much. I would occasionally do some strength training or running or boxing or something like that with friends, but mostly inactive. And post-college, was still fairly inactive until I met Shayna. And she was an active person, and she was a coach at a local gym. And so that's kind of where I was introduced to high-intensity interval training. And the people at that gym started getting certified in CrossFit. Eventually, there was a split there. And Shayna, along with other people, decided to forge their own path and start their own CrossFit gym. And that was CrossFit East Decatur. And they actually started in a local park. And so they would carry equipment to the park and do their workouts there and their training there. And I was involved in that as an athlete. And then eventually we opened our own space over there on New Street. So that was in 2008 when CFED was founded. But I was there as an athlete mostly and a supporter. And again, I was still not that into exercise. I would do CrossFit on occasion and always get my ass kicked. And it was always painful every time I did it. So I wasn't really bought in yet. That kind of took maybe a year and a half after CFED was even founded before I decided that CrossFit was something that I liked and wanted to be involved in, and got my L1 and became a business owner, co-owner as well.
What took so long?
Probably a little bit of ego, maybe a lot of bit of ego. I considered myself maybe a natural athlete, and I thought I looked pretty good. I was always skinny. I always had muscle, and maybe not as much as I have now. Definitely not as much as I have now, but I didn't really care all that much at the time. And so when I would do CrossFit, I had this different mentality that I was supposed to be good at it. And so I would get into a workout, and they're not very forgiving if you go out too hard, which I had a tendency to do. I would go out really, really quick because I wanted to beat everybody. And about a minute or two into the workout, I would realize that I went out too hard, and I would sometimes quit the workout, or I would at least lay on the floor or rest for several minutes at a time before getting back into it. And so this was just happening over and over and over when I would go to the gym.
So it was a competition.
It was the competition of it, which, the competition part of it is both good and bad, depending on how you look at it, probably somewhere in between as well. And so it was just that constantly beating up my ego. It was hard for me to get through.
Okay, so it took you a while to actually get the workouts into your system regularly, to become certified as a coach, to become involved on a business level. What happened when you were able to make those sort of commitments? Like how did that affect your body, maybe your physical practice, but also like your mindset?
The thing about exercise is if you do it even just a little bit consistently, you're going to see results. So even in the infrequent stages that I was doing it, the once or twice a week, I was still getting healthier. I was still getting stronger. I was starting to make maybe a few better decisions nutrition-wise. And so it was just kind of chipping away at these habits that I had built up over the years.
Bad habits.
Or unhealthy habits, maybe. And so as you start to get more involved in the exercise portion and the community portion, they start to kind of intertwine and intermingle and enhance each other. And so I would hang out with more people at the gym. I would want to exercise more. I would want to eat better, to do better in the workouts. So again, all these things play off of each other. That kind of led me to, okay, I'll get my level 1 and I'll learn maybe a little bit more about this whole CrossFit thing. I think I was probably already starting to coach people because it's just my tendency to try to give direction when I know that I can. So I was probably already coaching people unofficially because I wasn't a coach at the gym, but I would be working out and I would say, hey, maybe you could do this better, to the people I was working out with or whatever. And so I got my level 1, and then it eventually led into becoming a co-owner as well.
So we talked a little bit about like what it was like when you were dropping in occasionally and it felt miserable and you were taking massive breaks, right? So, and then then magically, you're certified, you're working out, you're building strength, you're building muscle. But there's like this really difficult part in between those two things, right? Where something had to have shifted, where you felt comfortable practicing weakness, which is, of course, like one of Move's core values is practicing weakness in a safe space of the gym. So Maybe as far as your experience goes with practicing weakness, what allowed you to feel comfortable doing that, like leaving your ego out the door, or at least leaving, enough of it at the door that you were able to participate in a way that you could build yourself in class. So I wonder, like, how you were able to make that bridge, but then also how you help clients or members make that as well.
So the nature of the exercise we do, being a group class mostly, there's a huge emphasis on community. So these workouts we do often are bonding because we're all going through this stress together. You're all doing the same workout. You're all sweating together. You're groaning together. You're maybe hating life a little bit sometimes together. And then you all end up on the floor sweating and breathing heavy, and you high five each other and you say, "Oh, wasn't that awesome?" So
what a way to describe that.
Everybody come and join. Right?
Let's sweat and groan, be miserable.
Right. There's nothing.
But then you get a high five.
Right. There's nothing quite like hard work to bring people together. By nature, you are living through weakness. By the nature of those workouts, you are living through weakness, and everybody's vulnerable. So I think you just start to get used to being in that situation of being vulnerable and showing people your weaknesses. I mean, they're right out there in the open. Sometimes you try to hide them even in that setting, but eventually you come around to, okay, this is something I need to work on.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about myself for a second. So this whole idea of like practicing
Talk
weakness.
about yourself, Babz.
I'm going to, because I get to. So I'm curious, like practicing weaknesses. So somebody might think, somebody from the outside, AKA this is exactly what I thought, but before I accidentally joined a CrossFit gym, like totally accidental. Because
Gotcha.
I was like, there's no way I can do this. This is uninteresting to me. I'm opposed to this. Yet I signed up because you guys call yourself Move Functional Fitness, right? And so I was like, yes, functional fitness. Here we are. Also CrossFit. So my question is for folks who are on the outside right now. So folks who have not signed up, folks who have not been members, maybe people without athletic backgrounds, or people like myself who have chronic illness, chronic fatigue, issues with tendons, issues with the body, maybe basically barriers to access in some way. So because you're talking about this, like sweating, enjoying it, getting stronger, but what about people who right now in their minds are thinking like, there's no way I could do this because I have all these issues with my own body, or I have all these issues with my time. I wonder how Move creates that safe space actively to give folks like myself, like everybody else who's ever joined, that space to really realize their potential.
Well, I think that it's all relative. You joining the gym and your goals were a lot different than me joining the gym, and my goals, and will be different from 10,000 other people. One of our core philosophies is that everyone is born to move. Whether that's coming in to hit a world record on a lift, or you just simply want to look better naked, or maybe you just haven't moved in 15 or 20 years and all you really want to do is just go for a walk. All those are valid.
Maybe you missed PE class.
Right. Maybe you missed PE class. But when you walk in the doors, we want to know what that intention is for you. We want to know what your goals are. We want to know whether or not we'd be a good fit. Maybe we won't be. Maybe we don't feel like we can get through to you and help you reach your goals.
I get that something that will allow a member to come back time after time. And I know myself, I'm a part of like approximately 362 different group chats composed of Move members, right? I will also say like current members, but former members, because these relationships last. Even if people move on, like especially during COVID where folks are exercising at home, we're all exercising at home, we still have that connection and that accountability. So I see that's a value. how do you help people overcome physical obstacles in their bodies, whether that is, very real, like a chronic illness, or maybe that's just fear, right? And fear can be very real as well. How do you work with people and their barriers at the gym?
Mm-hmm. It starts with a relationship. You come to the gym and you talk to somebody at the front desk, and that relationship builds from there. But the training is one aspect of the move experience. Mm-hmm. Working on your goals, working through maybe an image of yourself, or maybe how your mental limits affect your physical limits. Working through that's going to happen just through the training. But the thing about relationships is you're going to build the relationship with the coach, but then you're also going to build a relationship with the gym and mm-hmm. with the community. And I think what's interesting about this type of exercise and about move in general is that I say it's my gym, but it's really the people of move. It's their gym. And I'm sure you've experienced this, and I know that most of our members experience this, where they say it's my gym. They say, mm-hmm. Come to my gym. They take ownership of move. That's what helps inspire those continued relationships, those late night chats and things like that help us stay connected even in times like COVID.
So something that you just mentioned that I want to pull out a little bit because it relates to something you were saying about yourself earlier, this image of self and self-image. You mentioned that, I'm skinny, I'm muscular, I'm a good-looking guy. Maybe you weren't feeling good, though. You weren't feeling strong. Could you talk a little bit about working with folks on their self-image and maybe goal setting, as we've talked about, setting goals to achieve that self-image, but also grounded in your philosophy at the gym. So perhaps that's of strength, technical mastery, these sort of things, how they affect each other.
I've told you this, and I think I've even talked about this a little bit on previous episodes of this, but when I started to really accept CrossFit was when we went to CrossFit Regionals in 2009. I was there as a spectator. Mm. And before, my exposure had been people at our gym mm-hmm. and people at local gyms. And there were some fine athletes for sure. But again, I fancied myself athletic. Mm-hmm. I could still kind of compete with people at the gym. Mm-hmm. We talked about competition. I could still kind of keep up with people at the gym. Sometimes I'd be at the top of the leaderboard. Sometimes I'd be at the bottom of the leaderboard, depending on how it was. But I felt like I was a pretty good athlete. And then we went to the CrossFit Regionals in 2009. The athletes there were obviously well above where I was and well above most of what I'd witnessed in other gyms and our gym as well. And so that had a little bit of inspiration for me to start to focus on myself a little bit more. It was seeing these men, mm-hmm. and I'm describing them as men because I felt like a boy compared mm-hmm. to these people. And so this is something that I struggle with as far as my own self-image of seeing myself as a boy versus seeing myself as a man mm-hmm. and trying to learn what it's like to be a man. And so going to regionals and seeing all these men complete these workouts and these feats of strength and these physical activities quite easily, and knowing that that's not something that I could exactly do, it inspired me to go work harder and to try to live up to that image. I've since heard this described, and I totally agree, mm-hmm. as CrossFit kind of replacing the rites of passage mm-hmm. and it being considered like a trial by fire. And I can totally see that aspect because that's exactly what kind of drew me into it.
So what year did you say that was? 2009?
That was 2009.
So was that like 11 years ago? Can I do math? Yeah. So what has changed since then? Like you personally, how has your exercise changed? Or, you talk about masculinity. How has your sense of masculinity changed. So you went from this place of being in awe, right? It almost sounds like, if you've watched the Spartans practice.
Yeah, it was a little bit of
something.
reverence.
Yeah, sure, totally. Professional athletes, right?
Right.
And what did you, I guess, so you took home inspiration, you didn't take home defeat.
Correct.
You're just like, well, this is completely inaccessible to me. So you started working towards it. What did you learn about yourself in working towards basically their level?
Well, at first it was a dedication to consistency with exercise. So I remember leaving regionals, driving home, and it was in Jacksonville, so driving back home to Decatur or Atlanta, and dropped my stuff off and went to the gym. So like that day, I was inspired to go to the gym and exercise with the group. From that point on, for many years, I was very consistent with probably 5 days a week of exercise. And then that eventually led into like multiple workouts a day sometimes. And like I said earlier, with how these habits work, you start to exercise more, and then you start to think, well, I've got to exercise, so now I need to eat better. So it's like you start to think about how those things intertwine, the exercise and the nutrition for sure. And so I just became more dedicated in that way. Eventually hopefully you realize that hard work isn't always better, or working harder isn't always better. And so maybe I got burnt out a little bit even. And maybe I even got injured a little bit. And these things set you back. You start to maybe get a little depressed, and you start to get into your head a little bit. And so then you start to realize, oh, it's not just exercise, it's not just nutrition, there's a mental component as well. And I think we always knew there was mental, because we would be in these workouts and you'd start to say crap to yourself about you're getting beat up, or you're losing this workout, or I can never lift this, why am I even trying? Or you start to say these things to yourself, maybe internally, maybe out loud. So we knew that there was some mental aspect for sure, but we don't always focus as strongly on that as we do exercise and nutrition. And so you start to realize that all these things play a part, and they're equally important.
My guess for that is that nutrition, so exercise is a pattern, right? Nutrition is also a pattern. So we're talking about like building habits and building patterns.
Right.
It's difficult to get injured while eating. You know what I mean?
It's more of a long-term thing.
Yeah, right. You can self-injure with food over, that's
chronic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But there's this shocking moment. I've been injured so many times. I've done contact sports too. And I remember there was one time that I got hit really hard in roller derby. And this other time that I just ripped a tendon out of the top of my foot, and I felt it and I heard it and everybody heard it. And I was like, well, I'm done for at least 3 weeks. Wrap my foot up, don't walk, get crutches, etc. You have these moments that really jar you, and you're like, fuck, my pattern of working out every day. Roller derby practices are also very long and intense and full contact. So it's like, well, I used to work out. I had this 2-hour skate practice and drills practice. I won't be doing that. I guess I'll be staring at the wall. So the point that I'm getting at here is that it seems like very instant when you injure yourself. It seems instant to move away from working out. And I bet people are feeling this now too with COVID, where it's like, I don't have my gym. I don't have my community in the same way. So I wonder how you now in your position, you work with people through these obstacles that might seem sudden. So like COVID hits, gym is closed, or, snap my ankle. What am I going to do tomorrow? Like, where does it start, like planning, getting around these sort of obstacles, these sort of barriers?
I mean, I guess there's a bit of triage with anything. What is the most important thing at this moment? If it's an injury, well, shit, we got to take care of the injury. Is this something that you need to go to the hospital for? Is it something you just need to take a 2-second break from and then start over? Is it pain or is it actual injury, as my soccer coach used to say? If it's in the moment, then obviously you have to triage it. If it's, something like a crisis like we're in right now, or the pandemic, I mean, I don't think anybody knows what to do. And so just staying level-headed can go a long way and being thoughtful about your decisions and your decision-making process. And so maybe having that same mental approach when working with people, it works in both the gym and outside the gym.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about like the mental aspect of injury or the mental aspect of exercise and this lifestyle component. So you said that there's this process that people go through where they start working out and then folks become interested in other parts of wellness. We've talked a bit about like body wellness. So maybe group classes, the community is the social aspect. But it also sounds like there has to be a strong mental game, right, to get around these obstacles. I wonder if you have any specific ways that you approach that, either for yourself in the time of COVID or yourself normally. How do you work on your mental self, your mental strength?
I think that probably comes back to the goal setting process, and maybe not the goal setting process exactly, but certainly related to what your goals are and remembering that. We all do all the things for different reasons, whether that's working or exercising or play or whatever it is. We all have different reasons for living the lives that we live. And so in the gym, for example, we can get wrapped up in the minutia. We can get wrapped up in, one, am I doing this exercise properly? Coach is watching me. What's he thinking? And you can get wrapped up in just trying to do something right. And that concept of right, it can be completely different for the person doing the exercise and the person watching. And then you can get wrapped up in, well, I should be able to lift this much weight. Why should you? Is that a goal of yours? Or is it just something that because I wrote RX on the board, you want to do this weight? Why do you need to do that weight? Why should you do that weight? So there's those aspects. And then there's I'm winning the workout. I just won the workout. And maybe by winning the workout, I had to short a few reps or, not complete the same range of motion. Why did I want to win the workout? Why did I want to beat everybody? So there's all these mental components going on all the time, even just within a workout. And imagine that extrapolated out into the world. It's right. There's so many things that we're always thinking about and that are influencing our decisions. Again, it comes back down to your core philosophy, your core reason for doing your why, your goals. And so keeping those things in mind can center you during times of stress. And so I think maybe that's the main thing I would say to people is if you're under stress, maybe take a step back, take a breath, and think about the most important things and in that moment. They might not always be apparent to you right then.
I think we're all having to do that right now, right? Like, what is most important to us? How do we spend our days? These things that we might have gone through on a very automated schedule. Okay, wake up, eat, feed the cat, make a waffle, work out, or, work for 9 hours, go to the gym. We're having to re-examine the way that we've had our ways set up this way,
right,
or our lives set up this way.
And it's been accelerated.
Yeah. And so all of us are, presumably are micro-focused in on ourselves and these shoulds. So I know you and I talk about shoulds, but thinking about why should I be able to go RX? I've definitely had moments where I look at the board, okay, so my comfortable weight is about 10 pounds under the RX weight, but I could go RX. I could really push myself, right? And sometimes that leads to injury or that leads to disappointment. If I can't lift it, I have to quit the workout or I have to take the weight down. But really wondering, what does it mean to be RX, right? Why should I want to be RX? So you talk about Move as a human-centered business, right? A human-centered community. We've talked about empathy and understanding that you practice with your clients, that your coaches practice with your clients. How does that play out on a day-to-day basis? So maybe it's me, debating whether or not I should go 10 pounds to RX or I should just stick it the way that I'm comfortable with. How do you work with clients either during COVID now where your communication with clients is much more one-on-one? So the group setting has been removed essentially. Mm-hmm. So in the group setting, the individual setting, how do you work like moment to moment with somebody, and whether that's virtually or in person?
Well, I think it comes down to meeting people where they're at. So in the physical, when you're interacting with someone like we are now, I think it's easier because all of your senses are working. And so you can, even if somebody's telling you something, maybe you're picking up on something else, you can always kind of play off of that. It's a relationship business, so understanding that person and how they act and react, and maybe even going back from experience of, you've exercised in this way and you did this weight, and maybe it went this way for you and it wasn't so great, so maybe we have to go in this direction today. So having a history with the client certainly helps. Mm-hmm. In the online situation, it's a little bit different, but you're still trying to work with someone within their goals, within their means. You're asking them, how did they feel after yesterday? Well, what do you have going on today? What is your stress level like? What do you need to do in order to get your exercise in? Maybe you don't need to exercise. Maybe you need to rest. Maybe you just need to stretch. So I think what's interesting about what's happened with COVID and with us kind of being forced to shift our way of coaching, a lot more of my focus is on habits, not just exercise habits, but other habits, because stress levels are so high right now. Mm-hmm. And like we talked about earlier, maybe exercise isn't the most important component. Mm-hmm. There can be nutrition, there can be the social aspects, there can be the mental aspects that we talked about. So more and more coaching is kind of turning into that habit training versus just the exercise.
Yeah. I mean, also people are trapped with their families, mm-hmm. right?
So trapped.
Oh, well. I'm
That's
sorry.
maybe a little bit of projection there, Babz.
Well, I live with my cat and my snake, right? So, however, it makes me think of the relationship component too. So, I'm not a coach, but I am aware, nor do I have kids, but I know that these are things that people have to... There are people in people's lives that affect them, right? So if somebody has the goal of, I want to eat healthier. So not only is it that person, right? So you can be a very autonomous person, make the decision, I'm going to be gluten-free, I'm going to be paleo, I'm going to be keto, I'm going to even just like cutting out sugar, whatever. Mm-hmm. There's so many other people that could affect that choice. I mean, for instance, you and I, we like to eat out. Now we have to cook in. What does that look like? How can we make food exciting? But for other folks, it's like, well, I want to eat healthy, but my kid's a picky eater and my husband doesn't really get it. And there are all these components to it. And so what you just said reminds me that now that people are at their homes with their families, they have to contend with all these different needs and wants constantly. So not only is it making a choice for yourself, but it's making a choice within your family system that people are basically quarantined with right now. So maybe you had space and flexibility before to go get food that you wanted, or, maybe your kids could get cheeseburgers or whatever if they wanted that. I wonder if there's been any sort of stories or experiences with, without naming clients particularly, like any sort of major wins on that front. Like maybe quarantine or COVID has allowed people to look closer to themselves inside.
Well, like we talked about, and like you said, the priorities that everyone has now are, and maybe they've come to the forefront, like what people were doing is very apparent because they can't do it anymore in the way that they were used to. So our focus on priorities, on what is really important to us, has been accelerated. So maybe these habits and things would have kind of gone unnoticed for years and years and years, but now we can't do anything. So all of those are very apparent now.
There's no flexibility.
And so for some people, if they are truly interested in being happy or being happier or getting better, quote unquote, then they're going to start to find those ways to be happier and be better right now. So they're going to start eating a little bit better, or they're going to start exercising a little bit more. So we've seen people who have exercised more since they've been home than they did when they were out working all the time. Maybe they would only come to the gym twice a week, but now they're working out at home 5 times.
Yeah.
And it's their life has been restructured, so their priorities have changed. Additionally, when you start to live a certain way, people take notice. Any way you live, people will notice how you live. People in your household will notice that you're exercising. And maybe your kids will say, oh, there's my dad. He's exercising. I always want to be like dad. Can I exercise with him? And so we're seeing more people exercising with their families. Wives, for example, who they could never get their husbands to come to the gym. Now they're working out together, and then, like I said, the kids working out with the fathers or the mothers. And so you're starting to see these healthier habits rub off on the family. And again, it's a snowball effect. So if they start exercising, then they'll start eating better. And then eventually they'll start thinking differently. And so it's all going to build on each other. And we've seen that happen in 6 weeks.
It seems more supportive too to the person. Like if there was a lone actor of somebody going to the gym every day and now their family not only is like noticing it, but they're wanting to be included, right? And they're wanting to participate in it, and it's more collaborative. It's like, okay, the family maybe works out. The family as a unit, dog to cat to maybe chicken for some. Maybe this is the time that we all work our bodies and we feel good. We get some endorphins, we earn that popsicle, et cetera. So it sounds like the center of community has sort of moved towards the home for some of your clients.
Yeah, and I also feel that, and again, I don't know if I'm projecting or not, but maybe because people are together all the time now, and maybe when they would go off and do something for themselves, it was considered selfish, right? So you're going to the gym, you're going to be there for an hour or 2 hours or whatever.
You're leaving me here.
You're leaving me here with the kids.
Yeah.
Or I think from what I've heard and what I'm seeing, it seems like there's more empathy all around, where people are saying to their spouses or loved ones, yeah, you need 30 minutes to yourself. Go to the garage and work out, go outside and work out, or whatever, or we'll go work out together. So I think there's actually more compassion now than there was before.
I guess my question for you is that you don't operate. Well, you do operate in people's homes now. And sort of my conclusion from this is that, you used to foster this gym space, right? Now the gym space has gone to dozens of different people and in many different locations, right?
Right.
How is that going to affect Move as a physical location going forward?
Well, I think many people still want to work out with other people. That hasn't changed. The camaraderie of sweating on the floor after a workout is still attractive. Maybe attractive isn't the right word, but
I just missed that neighborly sweat.
Desired. It is desired. Like people want to feel something, and a CrossFit workout will make you feel something. And a CrossFit workout with a group of your closest friends will make you feel something. And so having that space to do that is still a necessity.
It's a different value prop, right? So what I'm hearing is that the members, myself included, you as well, we're finding ways to be creative and to exercise and move together, but also having this hunger for this return to normal, right? As I'm sure millions of people and billions across the planet, right?
Right. It's not just exercise. People want to be together.
Yeah, exactly. Like I miss my friends. I really do. Especially for folks like professionals like myself, where we work very long days. I realized that I looked forward to being at the gym either in the morning or in the evening because that's when I saw my people. Not like I don't love my coworkers, but that was my social group. So losing that social connection at the same time as losing the fitness, the exercise part, it's been difficult, right? There are other ways to build community online. I think that obviously all of us, we have close connection to our coaches. You guys are staying in very close communication with us as athletes. We're staying connected to each other. It sounds like we're adapting, but still there's so much value in doing this together. I want to just bring up an example as well of like the importance of flexibility and really like us focusing on ourselves and our statuses, how we are day to day. But like today we were thinking about a high intensity workout. Realized we were both completely exhausted. Yeah. And decided to spend like an hour playing with handstands, which can be equally productive, right? And it's fun. It like really injected a strong sense of like play back into exercise, which is probably something that we're all missing. The play, the fun, that community, the goofiness, the high fives, the things that you mentioned there. So, yeah. I mean, I'm personally learning a lot too, and I bet you are as well.
Sure. Yeah, and I think a lot of people probably have a concept of what exercise is and what exercise is for. And most people even think it's punishment. That hard work thing that we were talking about, you think you have to work hard in order to earn something and
earn love,
or earn muscle or earn, abs or beauty or, losing fat or whatever. You have to work hard. And hard work is punishing. And I get this often, and it's not true, but I get this often where people think I'm punishing them. They think that it is me who is doing this to them. And we all know it's all a choice. You pay me to come here.
Do people say that?
Oh, for sure.
That you're punishing them?
Yeah. And sometimes it's playful and sometimes it's, there's got to be some ounce of truth to what they're thinking. Yeah. Right. They think that that the goal of exercise is punishment. So I think having that shift to play can be exercise, practice can be exercise. I think that's important. And again, it's just awareness and that just your own mentality.
That reminds me of the culture around holiday overeating, right? It's like, I got to hit the gym really hard. I was bad. I misbehaved. I have to perform this ablution on myself, right? To get my body back to where it needs to be. Yeah, there's definitely a tension between indulging and then getting punished. But like, what if exercise could be that indulgence? Like I definitely saw that today. It just like goofing around, trying to figure out ways to do better handstands. Like that was straight up play. Right. Straight up. Even though it was taxing, right? Yeah. I noticed on my biometric tracker, it like registered as a workout. I guess my question for you then is, how should people be working out? I mean, especially now, it makes me think of like a Zen practice, actually. It's like, now is a good time to start meditating. Now is a good time to start digging deep. How does exercise and movement, especially the kind of programming, the very customized programming that you're doing for your members, what's the idea behind that? Or what's the motivation that you're trying to communicate to your members?
Right. Well, I think you're exactly right. This is a perfect time for everybody to take a step back and do some reflection and get your priorities in order. Like we said, your priorities are going to be at the forefront now because that's all you've got. Whether it's working or with family or however you're doing it, taking a moment to decide if that is really how you want to be spending your time, how you want to live your life, is super valuable. And that'll carry over into how you exercise and how you eat and how you talk and how you think. And it's an all-encompassing act. That's part of our philosophy as a gym, is to move with purpose. Know what your purpose is when you come into the gym. And maybe that's a challenge. Maybe it's not easy to know what your purpose is, because you're bombarded by all these other ideas and you've been told all these things your whole life of what your value is to someone else. And it's super important that we get to understand what the value is to yourself. And that process starts when you come into the gym. Like I said, you sit down with a coach and we figure out what it is that you want. And it doesn't stop there, because we want to figure out why you want it. Why do you want to lose 20 pounds? Because I want to fit into this bikini. Well, why is it important to you to fit into that bikini? Because I want to look good for my husband or my boyfriend. Or, well, why do you think you don't look good for them? So it's a lot deeper than just the exercise. It's a lot deeper than just the nutrition. So getting down to the core of what you believe about yourself is super valuable and super important.
All these shoulds, right?
Right.
I should look like this. I should be this way. I should be this strong for this person, so they see me in this way. It reminds me of this concept in sociology, the looking glass self. It's like me looking through you looking at me, right? What are you seeing there? Like, what do I want you to see? Do I want you to see a hottie with a body? Do I want you to see a competent young professional? Like, what do I want from other people? But that is separate from who you can be, right? And so the idea of being very purposeful, of course, is super important now. Something I was talking to a friend about recently is the way you live every day and your hours is how you live your life. It's a lot of us just wait for something to happen. We wait to be strong. We wait for that skill, butterfly pull-ups, chest to bar, handstand walks. I'm naming gymnastics, right? Because that's what I'm interested in. I want all these things. But what happens when I get those things, right?
Right. What happens?
Am I a better person?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
What does it mean? So I think what I'm hearing you say too is like thinking about the way that you spend your day. So if I spend every day working out, if I spend every day not working out, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. Can I make this workout instead of punishment? Can I make it purposeful? Can I make this part of my family's life? Can I make this part of our bonding? Can I make this valuable? Can I enjoy every breath while working out, whether it's, half an hour or less?
Right. Nearly everything we do is a reaction. So even subconsciously, you're reacting to what you think someone else believes about you or what you think someone else wants from you. Most of us are not thinking about doing it for ourselves or how it affects us personally. We're thinking about what that relationship is to the other person. So again, taking a step back and digging a little deeper and figuring out why you're doing something and why you want to do something, you can make a choice for yourself whether or not that's beneficial to you and not beneficial to who you think you should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you spend every day punishing yourself through exercise, what's the point? Mm-hmm. Now that we have that time and that need to reflect back on ourselves, it's not easy to just go to the gym, to like zonk out, to just listen to you, lead us through a workout, for you to set a clock. We have to do this intentionally now. So what does that mean as part of our lives at this point? Hopefully that sort of awareness can carry on through other aspects of our behavior patterns, right? And through our relationships, as you mentioned. But then also, most of us think we'll be past COVID lockdown at some point. So how this sort of intentionality can carry us forward through the rest of our lives, hopefully, too.
Right. Hopefully all the things that we start to learn now about ourselves won't be forgotten when and if life returns to normal.
Right. Well, thank you for allowing me to interview you today. I know that people, your listeners, have been able to listen to you talk through other people's experiences. So I think I've actually learned something about you today and about CrossFit East Decatur.
Oh, yeah?
I have.
That's good.
New information. So this was a total pleasure in getting to talk with you and learning more about the history of the gym, which far predates me. But also, hopefully the members will feel the same way. They'll learn about you as our fearless leader, as #CEO of Move Functional Fitness. But then also I think we talked about some very universal themes here too, stuff that we're all struggling with, very top of mind things for all of us, right? But then also remembering that we're here with this united purpose of having a fitness community, of having a wellness community, importantly, and all these different aspects of like our mind, our body, our social community. For me, this was interesting because it regrounded me, like, oh, I actually like working out. Here are all the reasons why, right? So this is what I get out of interviewing, which of course I do professionally, but it was totally a pleasure to get to hear from you, your perspective, and going through all of this as somebody who, you wake up every day not sure exactly what it means for your business, what it means for each client. So you constantly under the deluge of information and changes. It was good to sit down and to talk about like the reason that you're even doing this, the reason that I'm here, the reason that you're here.
Well, thank you. Oh.
That's our exit music.